In the last 24 hours, there have been massive explosions and collapsing buildings in Gaza City, together with the destruction of hundreds of meters of tear tunnels. The maneuver to encircle Gaza City is also proceeding, and this is the next stage of the IDF in this fighting. Meanwhile, IDF forces struck a Hamas terror headquarters in Gaza, but Hamas is trying everything that they can to convince the residents to ignore the IDF's evacuation alerts and employing a variety of means to prevent Gazans from leaving Gaza City. In a statement to Gaza's civilians, Hamas said, "There are no safe areas in the south. It's a deception." And in a related story, hundreds of trucks enter Gaza Strip every day, yet the drivers themselves admit a lot of aid is looted, mainly Hamas steals them. With these statements from the drivers themselves, why are so many media outlets still repeating the Hamas narrative about starvation in the Gaza Strip that is all Israel's fault? We'll take a closer look. And elsewhere, there are growing signs that we could be on the way to a comprehensive hostage deal, as the United States has presented principles for an agreement to Hamas, and President Trump has told them that it's their last and best chance to avoid annihilation. Welcome to Boots on the Ground. I'm your host Yair Pinto, bringing you all the truth about what's happening in Israel. In the last 24 hours, a long underground route that connected the west of Gaza City to its east was destroyed, and thus the main highway for the movement Hamas was cut off before the expansion of this operation. The IDF also struck a neighborhood in the northeast Gaza area, and reports surfaced of a hit on a house near a mosque. This increased IDF activity appears to have been noticed by the population, and around 100,000 residents are estimated to have left the city, but over 900,000 still remain. The IDF is publishing regular evacuation notices and alerts, especially before major strikes on Hamas infrastructures. However, Hamas is not ready to quit. They fired two rockets towards Israel on Sunday evening, causing no damage and no injuries. And circling back to the truck drivers, in recent days they have broken their silence, with some saying that Hamas stole our lives, while at the Kerem Shalom crossing, amongst the thousands of aid trucks that enter the Gaza Strip every day, Gazan drivers place direct responsibility on Hamas for looting, hunger, and suffering, saying Hamas doesn't want religion, only weapons. And amidst all of these developments, the United States recently presented principles for a comprehensive agreement to Hamas. The proposal, which is based on partial principles formulated by the Americans, was passed by an Israeli mediator, and it is not yet clear whether it will be acceptable to the Hamas terrorists. What we know so far is that, according to the American outline, all 48 hostages will be released on the first day of a ceasefire, together with thousands of terrorists that are currently being held in Israeli prisons, and thereafter negotiations will open to end this war, during which Israel will not be able to resume the fighting. So we have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on day 703 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region that are operating under the orders of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. And a moment before we begin, I want to call on you to continue spreading the truth, share, and follow us, because forces of evil around the world continue to spread lies about Israel, and we are standing on the front line of the truth. So we would be happy if you would support us, share this content, and of course, don't forget to click that subscribe button so that you remain tuned in real time and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. We'll start with the news from the Gaza Strip. On Sunday morning, sirens were heard in the Gaza envelope communities in Israel as one missile was intercepted by the air defensive systems and another missile fell in an open area. The IDF is increasing the pressure on Gaza City as Division 99 completed over the weekend for the 7th time the capture and the clearing of the Zaytun neighborhood by creating a ring around the south of that city and cutting it off from the central camps in that area. During the clearing, an underground route of hundreds of meters in the neighborhood was destroyed. Also, the IDF struck the Al Jazeera Club. This is a building in that area. And late on Sunday evening, the IDF spokesperson in Arabic, Colonel Avichai Aderi, published evacuation notices to residents of several high-rising buildings in Gaza City, and then about an hour later, Gaza media began reporting heavy Air Force bombings on those buildings. One of these high-rising buildings was used by the Hamas terrorist organization in the Gaza City area, on which the terrorists installed intelligence-gathering means and placed operational posts for the purpose of tracking the location of the IDF fighters in that area. As part of Hamas's preparations for the maneuver of the IDF forces in Gaza City and the expansion of the operation called Gideon's Chariots B, the organization's terrorists planted many explosives and charges near the building, but they won't go off and harm the IDF troops as Hamas has planned because this building was destroyed. And meanwhile, over the past weekend, the Air Force struck intensively inside Gaza City, and the city was flooded with alerts to residents to evacuate southward to safe zones, except that so far, only around 100,000 out of about 1 million are estimated to have done so. At the same time, Hamas's security mechanisms are operating at full force to block the movement of the population, civilians of Gaza, echoing a clear message that there are no safe areas in Mawasi. This is only a deliberate deception. This is according to Hamas. For their part, as noted, the Air Force is focusing the strikes in the Gaza City area and the neighborhoods that surround it. Earlier, forces of the Nahal Brigade infantry who continued to operate in the Zaytun neighborhood located and destroyed an underground route hundreds of meters long, inside which was a Hamas operations room. The fighters struck and eliminated terrorists who are hiding in a building under which there was an operational shaft that led to the underground route, a terror tunnel maze. In addition, dozens of terror targets were struck, including observation posts and weapons depots that pose a direct threat to the forces in that area. And meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Sunday morning at the cabinet meeting that the IDF is already deepening the maneuver inside Gaza City as well, adding that we are eliminating terror infrastructures, eliminating and encircling terror towers, and we will establish another humanitarian zone to allow the civilian population in Gaza to go to a safe place and also receive humanitarian aid and medical treatment. He noted, however, that at the same time, Hamas is making every effort to prevent Gazans from leaving the city, saying it wants them to stay there so that they will serve as human shields for the terrorists. It, by the way, does not shrink from means. We saw only recently that it shoots women and children in the legs and, if necessary, also kills them. Therefore, it is expected that it will try to prevent the exit that is required both for a human perspective and from the perspective of our entire concept of war. We want to focus on the terrorists themselves and allow the civilian population to go out of that area. This is according to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And while all of this is going on, the effort to provide humanitarian supplies to the civilian population of Gaza is also continuing. Despite Israel's enormous humanitarian efforts, within which more than 11,000 aid trucks have entered since the resumption of its flow in May, including thousands of tons of medical equipment, water, tents, and millions of food packages that were distributed, a different picture is revealed in the Gazan reality. A Gazan driver at the Kerem Shalom crossing told members of the media that they say that the situation in Gaza is good and also not good. We go and load, working 24 hours. The crossing is entirely working and everything is entering. The main problem is with the coordination story with the vehicles. The thieves, that's the problem. A lot of it disappears. What is entering now is only for merchants or for various organizations, for example, UNICEF, the United Nations, and they receive because they can go out to the Kisufim area. they have coordination, but there is no transfer of goods beyond the Morag corridor. When asked what Gazans are angry about and who is responsible for the situation, the drivers all answered, "These fools ruined our lives. Hamas is to blame. Hamas doesn't want religion, doesn't want Islam, only weapons." So, as you can see, we all know who the terrorists are, and forces of evil continue to try to harm Israel. And in most respects, they have been pushed back and contained. But in one sector, their hand is on top, because every day anti-Jewish, anti-Israel fake news is spread by extremist Islamic organizations. And we, at Boots on the Ground, fight evil with the truth. So, for the truth to go far, please share, leave a comment, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. But if you're wanting to do more, then let me tell you about one of our partners. We've seen how fast things can change here in Israel. One moment it's calm, and the next, rockets are falling, sirens are blaring, and people are running for shelters. The war with Iran may have cooled for now, but no one here is pretending that it's over. The threats haven't stopped, they've just shifted. And that's why Magen David Adom is already preparing. While the headlines move on, they're restocking ambulances, checking gear, running drills, and training new medics. Because when the next call comes, and it will come, they need to be ready to act quickly, often with maybe a minute of warning. And here's the truth. They cannot do it without your support. It takes resources including ambulances, medical supplies, protective vests, and the funding to train teams before lives are on the line. So guys, if you ever wondered, what can we do? This is it. Go to savelifeisrael.com and keep Magen David Adom ready for what's next. Because when others are running away, they're already on their way to save lives. So go to savelifeisrael.com. And now we are getting back into the news and switching our focus slightly to the diplomatic arena. It was revealed on Sunday morning that the United States conveyed principles to Hamas for a proposal for a comprehensive agreement. This is not a full and formal drafting of a proposal, but rather principles meant to dictate the continuation of the negotiations. The proposal was conveyed through the mediation of Gershon Baskin, who in the past was involved in contacts with Hamas for the release of Gilad Shalit, another Israeli hostage. This may be the background to Hamas's announcement in the last 24 hours that are emphasizing its agreement to the Qatari and also to the Egyptian proposal from mid-August. In any case, Israeli officials were updated on the Witkoff-Baskin proposal, which was conveyed to Hamas, while Hamas's announcement from Saturday night is understood by the negotiating parties to mean that Hamas still prefers the partial agreement that is proposed by Qatar and by Egypt, and not the new principles that were conveyed to it to the mediator, Baskin, and with the support of the Trump administration. Hamas stated in an official announcement on the En Hadad channel that the organization is waiting for an answer to the proposal that the mediators submitted and to which the organization agrees to. The Hamas announcement also stated, "We are ready for a comprehensive deal that will end the war." Hamas emphasizes that it will not disarm until the establishment of a Palestinian state, but that the organization is ready for a long-term truce with Israel. At the same time, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, addressed the efforts to release the hostages and warned Hamas about the consequences of continuing to hold them. Also, a senior Hamas delegation, headed by the terrorist organization's finance minister, Zaher Jabrin, went for a visit to Egypt over the weekend as part of the efforts to end this war. The delegation, which included senior Hamas members such as Hussein Badran, Razi Hamad, and Mahmoud Mardawi, met in Cairo with senior figures from various Palestinian terrorist organizations and other Palestinian elements to chart a national roadmap to end the war. It was reported that the parties agreed and the discussions should continue. which sound to me like they didn't reach any final conclusions and maybe couldn't agree on anything but just want to buy more time. Meanwhile, the head of the negotiating team and Netanyahu's close associate, Minister Ron Dermer, is expected to arrive in the United States of America this week and talk with senior officials in the Trump administration. Over the weekend, President Donald Trump referred to the talks between Israel and Hamas for the return of the hostages and the ceasefire in Gaza, saying, "We are in deep negotiations with Hamas." This is Israel's choice. If we don't get everyone out now, it will be very bad. There are 32 dead people. Here are 20 hostages alive, but I think some of them have died recently, so I heard, according to Donald Trump. What do you, our viewers, think about all of this? Let me know in the comments section. And speaking of comments, it was also published over the weekend that the IDF and the former Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi tried to persuade the political echelon of Israel several months ago to bring about an agreement that will release all the hostages in order to allow the decisive defeat of Hamas in Gaza without constraints. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development on this matter, so keep spreading the truth, share and follow us. And most importantly, do not forget to hit that subscribe button so that you remain aligned with what's happening in Israel in real time. And now, we are switching our focus to the northern arena. After the Lebanese government approved the National Army's plan to disarm Hezbollah and the organization's response in which it refuses to agree to this disarmament, President Trump announced that the United States will respond to Hezbollah soon and that the organization must sleep with both eyes open. That's a threat. His statement comes against the backdrop of rising tensions in this region, as Hezbollah has made it unequivocally clear that it does not intend to hand over its weapons, not even under the framework of government initiatives. Figures in Lebanon warned that the confrontation could escalate, while in the American defensive establishment, voices are being heard calling for decisive action against the organization that is backed by Iran. And during a special meeting over the past weekend, the Lebanese government approved the army's plan to disarm Hezbollah. The details of the Lebanon's National Army plan to disarm the terrorist organization Hezbollah remain confidential, but American officials are privy to the details. Hezbollah has already threatened in the past that any attempt to disarm it would lead to chaos and threaten a civil war in Lebanon. But those may be hollow threats at this point, and in any case, Lebanon's National Army and the internationally recognized government in Beirut don't appear to be intimidated by them, as they might have been in the past when Hezbollah was strong before Israel struck it down. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development on this matter, so keep spreading the truth, give a click to the subscribe button, and share this video with anybody who wants to know what's happening in Israel. Now we're shifting our focus to the Houthis in Yemen. On Sunday morning, communications experts reported disruptions in access to the internet in various areas in Asia and the Middle East following cuts to undersea cables in the Red Sea. For now, it is not clear what caused this, but recently concerns have been raised that the Houthis intend to harm these cables as part of their efforts to pressure Israel and the entire world to end the war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. However, in the past the Houthis denied attacking the cables for what that's worth. But can you believe a terrorist organization? To give some context, undersea cables are amongst the pillars of the internet worldwide, alongside satellite links and terrestrial cables. Typically, internet service providers have several points of access and reroute traffic if one of them fails, but in such cases, there can still be browsing slowdowns for users. And with that in mind, on Sunday morning, Microsoft reported that in the Middle East, there may be disruptions following cuts to undersea fiber optic cables in the Red Sea, and the NetBlocks service, which tracks online traffic, stated that the series of disconnections in undersea cables in the Red Sea has affected the internet connectivity in different countries. Countries that, according to it, included India and also Pakistan. Pakistan's largest communications company reported disruptions on Saturday, and in the United Arab Emirates, subscribers of government networks reported slow browsing. Undersea cables can be cut accidentally by anchors that are dropped from ships, but they can also be targeted by attacks. Once they are damaged, it can take weeks to repair them. The damage to cable reported over the weekend comes against the backdrop of Houthi threats to take revenge on Israel for the bombing that killed a series of senior Houthi regime officials last month. At the beginning of 2024, Yemen's ousted but still internationally recognized government claimed that the Houthis were planning to attack undersea cables in the Red Sea, and since then, several such cables have been cut, although once again, the Houthis themselves denied this responsibility. So far, most of the Houthis' struggle against Israel in the West in the Red Sea has focused on attacking vessels, ships. Between November 2023 and December 2024, the Houthis attacked more than 100 ships and boats with missiles and UAVs, usually claiming that they were linked to Israel. So far, they have sunk 4 vessels and taken the lives of at least 8 sailors. On Sunday, in the evening, the IDF shot down 3 incoming drones that were fired from the Houthis in Yemen towards Israel as they were about to enter the Israeli airspace, while a terminal at Ramon International Airport, just north of Eilat, Israel's southern city, was hit by another Houthi-launched drone, resulting in 1 person being injured. The airport's operations were only disrupted for about 1 hour. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development and everything that is happening on the ground in Israel. So keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And most importantly, remember that this is a spiritual war. How do we fight a spiritual war? We pray. I believe that praying to God is the best thing that you can do when things and times are tough, because He listens and He's loving us and taking care of all of our needs. Israel is just living proof of that. After 2,000 years of being in the diaspora, spread around many countries, we have a country. We are back in Israel, and it's living proof that God exists and that He loves and is faithful to His promises. So guys, when you pray, make it personal. Pray for the IDF soldiers that are preparing to enter Gaza City. Pray for the hostages to be released safely to their loved ones in Israel. Pray for wisdom to your leaders, to our leaders. Pray for all the innocent lives that are affected by these terrorist organizations all over the Middle East. And keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.